Hello, how are you? This is Els coming from Bemis Crafty Corner, and today I am doing a by request for the lovely Miss Mary M. She requested a black and white folio, so I took some time and I designed one for her. This one's going to have a little Velcro closure on it, and this is just the mock-up that I use. If you've seen me do these before, I always do a mock-up before I do it, just to give myself an idea and, you know, a starting jump-off kind of point. So we are going to need a file folder. This one is black, which is why we decided to do a black and white one. And we're going to need some paper, and I have some black and white and gray paper. And I don't know, about like 8-10 sheets here that I can use. I'm probably not going to use it all, but you know, we want to make sure we have enough. So we have some black and white paper, file folder, and then all of our regular tools. We're going to start by cutting the file folder down and getting it scored. So I'm going to pause the video here for a second and go and get my cutter, and then we're going to get this all trimmed up. I'll give you all the measurements, and as always, all of those will be in the description box below. So give me just a minute to get out a cutter and we'll get started. So we're going to cut this down, and we want it to be 8 inches across. So I'm going to slide it in to my cutter, put it on the 8-inch line, and we're just going to take the hangers off, okay? Now, once we have that done, we are going to do some scoring. Let me just get my scoreboard. And with the black side, or the outside of the file folder up, that's where we're going to start our scoring at. And we're going to take a look here. So we're going to do 2 score lines on one side, and then 1 score line on the other. But we're going to do it in reverse, because when we flip this over, we want the 2 score lines to be on this side. All right, so we're going to start with the first one, and that's going to be this one over here, which is going to be at 3 3/4. So we're going to get this into the scoreboard, make sure that our edges are lined up. We're going to come to 3 3/4, and we're just going to score straight down, all the way to the bottom. Then we're going to turn it around, and we're going to score again at 3 1/2, and then at 3 3/4. So we should have 1/4 inch here, and then a single score line over here. Then we're going to turn this, doesn't matter which direction. You just want to be careful that your double score line is going to be on your left when you fold, okay? And then I'm going to score this. We want this to be 7 1/4 inches, I believe. Yes, 7 3/4 inches. Everybody hold on there. So our file folder is 11 3/4 inches, roughly. So we want to come in at 4 inches and score this down. All right. So that's it for the scores. We're going to get the scoreboard out of the way, and we're going to do a little bit of trimming here. On your file folder, there's like these lines at the crease, and what we're going to do is we're going to trim one of these, but we're going to go at a little bit of an angle from the first one of these lines, because there's one here and one here. We're going to go from the first one at a very slight angle to this score line. And we're going to take that piece off. Okay? Now, if you have a corner rounder that will round this, then round the corner. If not, you can do this manually. No big deal. And then we're going to open this up, which should give us this V in the middle. We like the V. All right, now we're going to do some folding and some burnishing. So we're going to fold over on the right-hand side where we had our single score line. Then we're going to fold on the left. It doesn't matter which one of these you do first. We're going to do one of these. And then to do the other one, the easy way of doing this is just take your ruler, put it on your score line, and then just fold your paper up to it. And that will help keep that straight. Whenever you're folding a small score line like this, something that's got a really small width, if you do that, it'll help you keep it straight. And then we're going to fold up these bottom pieces and burnish these. All right. So you should have a piece that looks like this. Folds in with 1/4 of an inch on one side, just a flat fold on the other, and then your little V cut here and your two flaps that come up. Now we're going to do a little bit more cutting, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut away this piece, and we want to cut on the score line closest to this edge. So we're just going to cut straight down that score line. So this score line here, let me draw this in so everybody can see it. We're going to cut on this score line. Okay, there's 2 of them here. This is the one we're going to cut. And we're going to cut all the way to this score line, to the fold, and then we're just going to cut that fold away. So we've cut off our 1/4 of an inch and that whole square, okay? Now we just want to check to make sure that our pocket folds up without any interference. And that looks good. And then on the other side, we're just going to cut, again, straight down the score line. And we're going to leave all of that intact, okay? Now see, when I go to fold this, I got a little bit of a bubbling happening. So I'm just going to trim a little bit more off of this. Perfect. All right. Now on the original, this was a slash pocket, and that's entirely up to you. But if you want to make it a slash pocket, that's pretty easy to do. You can either put this in the cutter and just cut it away, or you can put it right onto your board, use a ruler and a pencil, and just draw a line, and then just cut this away with your scissors, or use your trimmer, whatever you want to do. We're going to cut this away. All right, so I have a pocket, a slash pocket, and my flap. I'm going to go ahead and round corners here now, just to get it done and over with, and out of the way. All right, so this should fold up this one, and then you should be able to fold this one up, and it should have a little 1/4 of an inch there, so that it holds everything else nicely. That's where we're going to stop at the moment. I'm going to go ahead and clean my desk off, and I'll be right back, and we're going to talk about inking and gluing and all of that stuff, and I'll be right back. All right, so we are going to obviously be inking this. We really can't ink up the outside. What we can do is ink the edge. So we're going to be inking this up. And if you're using just a regular, colored file folder, then you're going to be able to ink the outside as well. But inking the outside of this one for me doesn't make any sense because the file folder itself is already black. And I'm inking black, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink this, and you are going to ink yours. You're going to ink all the way around the outside. You're going to ink all of your folds here, 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 and here. You don't necessarily need to ink the tops of your pockets, but you do want to make sure that you get, around the edges here so that they don't have that look. So you want to go just on these edges and make sure that those are all inked. Once you're all inked, the next step would be to measure. So I'm going to go ahead and close this up real quick, and we're going to do some quick measurements. All right, so we need to cover this part, this part, this part, this part, and if we want to put any paper on the outside, okay? So we can start with just our regular measurements. So to do this one, from the fold is 3 3/4. So this is going to be 3 1/2. I just had that pencil again. It's like there's a pencil troll around here. Here we go. So this one is going to be 3 1/2. It is 7 5/8, I believe. 7 5/8. So 3 1/2 by 7 3/8 for top to bottom. So we know that measurement's going to stay consistent. 7 3/8. 7 3/8. 7 3/8. Okay. And then for this one, turn the ruler around, numbnut. Okay, so this one is 4 1/8. So we're going to go 3 7/8. This one should be pretty close to the same. Let me see. Yep, 3 7/8. And then this one is 3 1/4. Okay, now if I'm going to do these, I want to measure this. And this one is right at 4 inches, kind of the midpoint. So this one's going to be a little bit trickier because we have to get that angle in there. It's not a problem. I'll show you how to do it. So we want a piece that's going to be, let's see, 3 3/4 by 4, because we have to go to the largest width, which is 4 1/4. Okay, and this one should be the same size. And then this one, at its widest point, is going to be 3 1/2 by 3 3/4. Okay, so ink everything up, and then we're going to, now everything is inked. Okay, we did our measurements, so we went ahead and cut out our paper. And I have a piece for this one and a piece for here, and a piece for here, and a piece for here. And then I have these pieces, which obviously don't, you know, they don't fit. So this is the part we're going to work on next, okay? So let's get these out of here real quick. And let's take a look at these. So if I put this on here, you can see where this is not going to fit, okay? So what I do is I put it on and I measure my top bottom, and then I go twice the width here as I want on that side, and then you can clip this on or use a paper clip, you know. So I'm just going to put a paper clip on here, and then I'm going to turn this over, and I'm going to use my pencil to just draw my cut line. Okay? Now, remember, we cut this as a single unit, so guess what? If we take these two pieces and we put them front to front, right sides together, trim that. We end up with two matching pieces that fit on these pockets. Right? Awesome. Okay. All right, so that's that one. Now, let's talk about the one on the end. Let me get these out of the way. Let's talk about this one on the end. So we cut a piece here that was 3 3/4 by 3 1/2. Does everybody see the issue? Okay. So again, what we're going to do is we're just going to double our distance. We're going to double the distance here, double the distance here. Put that about where we want it. Paper clip. Draw a line. Okay. Cut on the line. Voila. Perfection. Okay? Alrighty. So now I'm going to ink all of my pieces, and when I come back, we're going to glue them all down. And then we're going to glue the folio together, and we're going to move on to the next part. Okay? So, ink. 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 And remember, on this narrow one that goes over here, you're going to want to round the corners first, okay? Because if you rounded the corners on here, you're going to want to round the corners on here, okay? You may want to round the corners on everything. That is entirely up to you. But certainly, if you rounded these, make sure that this one gets done, okay? All right, go ink. I'll see you back here in a minute. Okay, so everything has been inked now. The base has been inked, the pages have been inked, and we're ready to kind of glue all of this down. So let's put our pieces in the appropriate spots. And let's go ahead and get this stuck down. Now, you can use glue, you can use tape, whatever you want to do to put this down. I'm going to use glue just because it's, for me, it's fastest to do. But since you're really not going to put any wear on this, you could use tape if you wanted to. Okay. Alright, now once we have all of these in, we're going to glue our pockets down. So I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to get these glued in, and then we'll come back and I will start gluing the pockets down. And then we're going to talk about that alternative scoring, okay? If you don't have a scoreboard, we'll talk about that real quick too. So I'm going to be right back. Alright, so everything's been matted, everything's been inked, and we're ready to move on to the next part. So for this, all we're going to do is we're going to glue just the straight sides, okay? So this straight side here, this straight edge, and then this straight edge. Okay? So now you have a slash pocket, a pocket, and a pocket. And if we fold this up, you have your little flap. Okay, now. Glue a chance to really dry. I'm going to put this off to the side. And we're going to talk about that alternative scoring because we're going to add a little something here. On this flap, on the back of the end flap, we're going to build a notebook to put here. So we're going to get a piece of black cardstock, or white, it's up to you, and then another piece of our paper, and we're going to build a notebook. So we're going to get out some of our scrap paper, as far as like lined paper and things like that. We're going to get out that scrap. We're going to get out a piece of scrap cardstock, and we're going to get out another piece of black and white. So I'll be right back with those, and we're going to talk about that alternative scoring method. All right, so I have some lined paper, and I have some paper that I have left over from another project. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this flap. And this flap measures out to about 3 3/4. So we're going to go 3 1/4. So we're going to cut down some paper here to 3 1/4. We save that. We can always use it later. I think this is probably going to be about enough. Then we're going to double check our height, which is 7 5/8. So we're going to do this at 7 inches. So we're just going to cut these down and make sure they're at 7 inches. All right. So now, see, our paper is going to fit nicely. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to cut our back piece. Okay, so we have our paper that's going to go in our pad, and we need to cut our back piece and then a front cover. So for the back piece, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of put our paper on here. And for our across, we're going to do like 1/8 of an inch on either side, so that takes us to 3.5. Because remember, our paper's 3.25 inches across. So we're going to cut a 3.5 for the back by, give ourselves 1/8 of an inch off the bottom, and that's going to give us the we have 1/8 of an inch for our fold over, and then 1/2 an inch. So we're going to cut this at 7 3/4 by 3.5. Okay, so 7 3/4. That piece isn't big enough. Let's try it this way. Yep, there we go. 7 3/4 by 3.5. So that'll be our back piece. And then we're going to cut like some 1-inch strips. Okay, let's get this lined up. We're going to cut like 2 1-inch strips here, okay? This is what we're going to use for our back, and then we have to do our front. And our front needs to be 1/8 of an inch larger all the way around. So this is 7, so we're going to go 7 1/4 by 3.5. All right, 7 1/4. Three and a half. So now we have a cover. All right, so I'm going to get the cutter out of the way for a second. All right. So this piece is 3.5 inches wide. So we want to cut these to 4.5 inches. Okay. So that we can do on the little cutter right here. Four and a half. 4.5. Okay. So in order to, do this without a scoreboard. It's pretty easy. If we put our paper on, and we put this on a grid, get this lined up. Just like that. We're going to see that we're going to fold this over, and we need an 1/8 of an inch here. We have an 1/8 of an inch on the bottom. So our 1/8 of an inch is going to be on this quarter line. And so we're going to do one right at the top of our paper, and then one at the quarter line. So for this, all you're going to do is take your ruler. Easy. You're going to put it on the quarter line, and then you can use whatever tool you have, your bone folder, the back end of a paintbrush, whatever, and just put a little line in there, and then fold your paper up onto your ruler, okay? And then just crease it. Okay? And then I want to give it just a little bit of room for the paper, so I'm just going to come out a little bit from that. And I'm going to put in a second line. Again, I'm just using the tip of my bone folder here. To be honest, you can do it with a pencil. Okay? And then put your ruler there. Hold it nice and tight. And fold up. And it's going to give you basically a score line. Okay? So now I have two little score lines in there. Okay? So if you don't have a scoreboard, don't worry about it. All right, so I lost a little footage here, so let me go ahead and walk you through how we got to this point. So we took our back and we stapled our paper together, and then we folded our backing over our front, and we added just a little bit of glue here, okay? That allowed us to have this connected. So that was our top piece, and we just glued that on, and then between our glue line and where our staples are, we poked 3 holes, and we tied this on with a piece of waxed thread. And then we took our 4-inch strips, we placed one right up here against the back, and we folded it over, and we created a little pocket, and then we did the one on the bottom so that our pad will slide in and out. Okay? Without moving around on us, okay? So that's how we got to this point. So we have our notepad here that you can write on. You're able to take your pages out of it. We have our pockets. So we have a pocket, a pocket, a pocket, a notepad. We're going to flip this over. And this then becomes our outside. Now, we can put a piece of paper in here if we want to. That is entirely up to you. I am going to be using a piece of paper, probably this one right here, on here. And I'm going to be using a Velcro dot to close this. So I'm going to go ahead and remeasure this, which is 7 5/8. By 3 1/2. So we're going to do 3 1/4 by 7.5. Okay, 7.5. Did we say 3 1/4 or 3 3/4? I think it's 3 1/4. 3 1/4. Right. It's going to go right there, and then we're going to round some edges. And ink. Dry fit. Looks fantastic. So I'm going to glue this down, and then we're going to put that Velcro closure on. And this should be done. All right. There. And then to put this on, I'm just going to take the backing off of one side. I'm going to put it on my flap at about midpoint. Take off the backing on the second side. Close that, press down. And there's our folio. Now I do have a little decorating left to do, so I'm going to get that taken care of. And then this one's done. Now, if I wanted to put this into a journal, I could certainly stitch it in here, which would allow me to open it, that being my center point. Or I could just put an elastic into a journal and slip this in, or I could just throw this in my purse and be done with it. Okay? So that's it. That's my little black and white folio for Miss Mary M. And thank you so much for the idea. It was fantastic. I had fun doing this one, and I will see you all in the next one. Remember, all of the measurements will be in the description box below. So if you want to make Mary's folio, by all means, go ahead and cut one out and get it glued down and put it together. Okay. If you're new here and you haven't done so already, go ahead and hit that red button for me and subscribe. Like me, ring my bell, share me with all your friends, and your friends can be my friends can be your friends, and our friends can get to be friends. And before you know it, we have a giant crafting community. Until I see you the next time, remember, I go live on Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. That's 11, 12, and 1 across the country. I also post videos on Mondays and Wednesdays, and you can join me for a live class for my building journal classes that are on Saturday afternoons, with a video release first thing in the morning so that you can participate in the class and then ask me questions later. That's all I have for you. Until I see you again, stay safe. Bye-bye.